Michigan. This is Tap In Podcast with Pamela Keim from Grand Tap Media and Stephanie Kolakowski with Grow Business Today. We have a special guest off location. She found time to be on our podcast. We're going to talk about how she's pivoting in 2021 and what she did to get through 2020. So I want to welcome to the show Shelley Irwin from the morning show with Shelley Irwin on WGVU and all the other stuff that she does in her life. So welcome to the show, Shelley.
Oh, it's wonderful to be here. And yes, I found time. Better word, I made time. This is the highlight of my day.
Oh my God! Well, thank you so much. We're so glad to have you. Okay, the focus of this tap in is to tap into people like you and how you're pivoting during this COVID. I know we want this to be over, but it's here. And how you've been, because a lot of our lives have been flipped upside down. Things that we normally did on a regular basis have been changing. We can't go in the public. We can't be MCs. We can't go events. So let's share a little bit of what you've been doing since March to keep this going,
Yes.
and what you're doing to connect with your listeners.
Yes, thank you for this. Well, first of all, it has been a very challenging year, and we do look at 2021 as the next step, but we still stay the course to keep everyone safe. Yes, early March, we heard the news that things were shutting down. I was considered and am considered an essential employee of Grand Valley State University. So I knew that I still needed to present a service and still was able to come in and do my show. Yet that meant all interviews needed to be on the phone, which we could do. It loses a lot of the connection that we have, but I had a show to do, and probably 80% of those first interviews were somewhat COVID related. Now, not all doom and gloom.
Okay.
How do you cook healthfully during COVID? How do you keep your pets happy during COVID? How do you keep the kids entertained? So I had no problems finding interviews for the basic morning show. On the television side, we went all Zoom. I grouped mostly all interviews into 3 interviewees with themes. We began with businesses, and I also did a feature with the radio as well. How are you reacting? How are you coping? How can the community serve? What's your silver lining? So we adapted and basically continue this course right up until now.
So you still are Zooming, right? You're basically Zooming your
Yes.
show? Yes.
On the television side, everything is still Zooming. On the radio side, everything is, I call it phone because I don't have the Zoom interaction on the visual side, but everybody is on the phone. I do a lot of tapings, and we still have a 9 to 11 show, and I think we're still serving a purpose.
All right, I'm going to wrap in with Stephanie Kolakowski. I forgot to say hi to her. You know, she's jumping in. Isn't that rude of her?
It's all good. It's all good.
Hi, dear. Hi, dear. You know,
Hi,
so I want you to tip. I know you're excited to have Shelley here. I've interviewed her before, so I know a lot about her. So for our new listeners and people out there, I'm just going to put it to you. What have you been dying to ask her since you heard we were going to be interviewing her today? You know?
Yes. So we heard a little bit about Shelley's past earlier, which we'll post on our podcast page as well later on. But Shelley, curious to know, you know, in times like these, so you're a veteran in the industry now. People are not veterans who have had this experience in media or other sectors and have now been learning and pivoting. What advice would you give for resilience and handling times like these?
Yeah.
Know your passion. What is calling you? What is keeping you up at night in a good way? I still want to follow my dreams of being a journalist. So you call up your role model, your mentor, someone who you look, maybe that's the 3 of us, and you say, how can I help? How can I get involved? How can I learn from this time? I want to be in this profession. So I throw it basically back on a responsibility of that person that wants to get involved. Now, perhaps I need to open a platform starting in 2021 to whether it's the high school persona or the college persona. So to say, I have a place for you at the table in a learning kind of a way. So it still needs to be a reach out. I'm responsible. I have a calling. I want to learn this, and it's not all going to come from a book. And I still need to have a platform available. So if the two of those meet, that's how I started 20 years ago.
I love it.
Okay, so
I love what you said about starting earlier with your platform too. You know, one thing working in radio, whenever we went into a high school or a middle school, kids are just so excited and they have so many questions and they want to talk. They want to know how they can get into radio. You know, we would have tours all the time. Kids would come in, and how wonderful it would be to actually not have to wait, but have some type of people that band together and work through a program and an opportunity to connect and start learning those basic skills. So by the time they get to the colleges and universities programs, one, more people are probably going to sign up and want to do them. And number two, they're armed, prepared, and able to even expand farther. We were talking to Dr. Wing when he was being interviewed a few weeks ago on Grand Tap Media. And he was sharing about how he's working with students too to set up platforms and websites and for nonprofits, which is beautiful. But their starting point is, you know, their baseline. So like Google Analytics and things that nowadays for businesses need to be there, they're not doing or teaching. And it all goes together, right? Like what we were talking about earlier with media and opportunities in that digital space. And so I love that. I love that your willingness to create and work together to build that and to see how we can serve and what we can do to help there.
So Shelley, you know, really quickly on the net, that was really good stuff. But to me, you know, you and I being huge networkers, being out there in the public, you know, that was part of our life. How's it going since March? I mean, when everything just kind of went, you know, how are you connecting?
Well,
how are you? Because that was a part of your life.
Yes, it truly is. I have probably, well, I still maintain all my boards and of course all boards are still active and are Zooming. So there still is an agenda to meet with Hope Network, to meet with Meals on Wheels.
Okay.
I did host my first gala in May for Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. That was somewhat interesting.
Was it virtual or was it in person?
Yes,
what was it?
Virtual. No in person. That has shut down. Basically.
How's that going?
Well, it's the only. Well, I did the leukemia. I did C-SNP. There were two of us on the theater stage, no audience, but it was kind of a live. The two of us, and they're only hours. Okay. So it's obviously all cut down and to almost nothing. As far as networking, I mean, we have to be safe. We can't not follow rules. Okay. But it's very tough. There have been unique happy hours to at least stay in touch with friends and other venues, but that has shut down. Now I've turned personally my lack of participation into like behind the podium to being a participant because they haven't had a need for an MC. Right. And a couple of obviously are using different techniques too. But it's been tough.
Well, I bet because you were I mean, let's be honest, you know, you're up on the podium a lot. Yes. You know, for people's missions to raise money and whatever, and then now you're in a virtual where you're a line of people. I hate to say that, but I do the same thing. I'm on the YMC board, and I'm like, you know, whatever. You know, I don't mean to be like I don't care, but I'm not as engaged as when I couldn't wait to get there and see my friends and push that. But that's just part of life. I mean, just to be virtual is okay. It's a good substitute, but it's not the best in connecting and staying with the mission.
And there's just nothing like, there's nothing like the podium for sure. And
really.
But there's, as you mentioned, there's nothing we can do. And we're all in the same boat. We all are rowing our boats differently. And we look forward to now, again, whether this platform helps, I put more work into I've done more interviews, put more work into my work, work into my personal working out. I probably swam the most I've ever have this summer. So you start to substitute this love for another love until we come full circle. And but we're all in the same.
So what are you talking about? Can you share with us? Because a lot of the people that were coming on your show were promoting an event, promoting a thing. So they're coming on, and your regulars like YMCA, you know that they come on regularly, and all of what's going on in the county, what's going on with the commissioner. What are they talking about? What are we talking about?
Sure. A lot of events are still happening virtually. Cherry Health still had their event. And I mentioned Michigan Women Forward. Still, we talk about their events. A lot of national features will pitch their guest on how to wear a mask. Businesses locally have been manufacturing equipment. So there's been a little bit of a spin on who's been on. Right Place, Burger Close still talks about how we're doing with our economic development. Theaters have all changed. Circle Theater, almost all virtually. Grand Rapids Civic Theater had a drive-in theater. Things still happen, and those words still needed to get out. So even though we're all not gathering for the Athena luncheon in September, there's still an Athena virtual celebration celebrating Tasha Blackman this year that was at 4:00 on Facebook. So there we go.
Okay.
Same thing with the chambers. And also I think too, social impact marketing. So you're hearing a lot now and a lot more intentionality with corporations. And it's been really cool to see the pivoting from image marketing to your interview formats to how can we engage, what can we control, how can we be there and be present. Have you noticed that too?
I have noticed that very much so. DeVos Performance Hall celebrated their 40th anniversary. We actually did a documentary on that where we actually went and brought our cameras to the hall, socially distanced, and talked to the ballet, the symphony, Mike Lloyd from Broadway Grand Rapids. So, and then I was able to do an audio feature, an everyday feature. So we've twisted some of the words that needed to get out with other ways.
Okay, so you're downtown, and I've been down there to your studio, part of that, your studio. What's your, share with us what it's been through the summer, the riots. What was your feeling when all that started going down, and you're like, you're doing your show, you're going down there, you're still doing, you know what I mean? You're involved, finding out what was that like for you?
Well, it was painful to hear of that, obviously. Our news, I'll give news, obviously a pitch. They were able to bring back current news right on, man on streets, etc. But the morning of the riot was a Sunday, wasn't it a Sunday?
Saturday. I thought it was a Saturday because they did were you involved with the walk? Because the walk happened at night.
It was
at 7.
Saturday, and then Sunday was cleanup.
Yes.
Yeah.
That Sunday morning, I took my camera down there. I didn't want to take my microphone and stick it in people's faces and say, how are you feeling? But but what happened was I made a note of the 4 or 5 people that I saw, a very diverse audience, and did a feature where I called them the next day, how are you feeling? How have you reacted? How can the community help? I would always ask with that's how I brought the personal side out versus this many businesses and this is where the police are. I tried to present that more with news versus I tried to tell the stories. It was a good feature.
Well, you've been such a promoting, the police department, the military, because we've had on your show or whatever.
Yes.
What are your thoughts when people are just coming out over the summer, just attacking personal friends of yours, people that serve and protect us? What was your reaction to them?
Well, I'm a big believer that my personal reaction cannot be presented in story form. In other words, I have to still be factual. I still have to deliver my storytelling, but obviously, yes, I want my community protected. This community means a lot to me.
Right.
So we'll tell stories about this is what's happened. Tell me your story. And I go back to how the community can help to repair. I avoid politics. I avoid, obviously, religion as much as possible as far as opinions. And we just put one foot in front of the other. Obviously, I had the mayor on, but it was a conversation. so that's kind of how I get out of a talk show host opinion.
So when you were interviewing the mayor, real quickly, did you have to, did you really ask her a lot? I didn't see the interview, but did you ask her some real tough questions, or did you kind of we support you still, even though our city is, is pretty much smashed after that beautiful city that we had just February. We were down there all the time. And I wanted to cry. I couldn't go down there for like 2 months because I loved it. I felt so bad for what was happening. So what's your thought on that?
I'll start with the good thing for being down there that Sunday morning is I was not down there at 1:30 a.m. I was listening I was on my Facebook awake at night, watching what was happening. But that next morning, it was the cleanup. You would have felt pride in your city watching the cleanup at 7:30 a.m. That's unfortunately, the damage was so severe that those 8 hours prior, but if you were able to see the cleanup, your heart would have known that we have a community. The interview with the mayor was on the phone, so obviously wasn't a lot of face-to-face. It was basically the facts. What has happened? How will we catch those involved? And again, how the community can help. I'm not a big, hard, tough question interviewer. Okay. Good, bad, the ugly. I mean, one can fault that, one cannot. I want to know how you are. I want to hear your story versus how could you let this happen to our city? I can't go there.
Right. And so what do you think?
I'm going to jump in right here because I think this is a really important topic. I really do. And I think that when we look back, so many people, the emotions, the PTSD from those first responders on the scene to those watching at home, their city, burning, to saying, wow, how did we get here? We thought that we were doing all of this great work with diversity, inclusion, and equity. We've been intentional about X, Y, and Z. We've opened lines of communications. But as media, and people like to quickly blame the media, and I have a heart, obviously, my whole career has been spent in it. And we teach and we have code of ethics that we have to follow. And you are not to give your opinion about political things, about religion. You are there to report the news and you are there to understand both sides. And I think that in life, though, the people behind it that do that really well, and in general, who can ask questions, not to debate, but to understand first, to learn, and they can connect. And so I love what you just said. And I think that that's exactly how I want to live my life, not just in front or behind a camera, but just my life in general. So kudos to you for doing that. And I do wonder moving forward, and ever the opportunity to ask, and actually Commissioner Yassi called me yesterday, is how are we going to address that as a city, that mental health aspect of, wow, so many are suffering from depression, but post-traumatic stress from that incident. Yes. How do we talk about that in a positive way?
We talk to the players involved. We talk to those from I Understand. We talk to those from Mental Health Foundation of Western Michigan. We spread that on all platforms. We hopefully see the billboards. We share the suicide line. It becomes part of conversation because obviously asking for help is the first key. So anything we can do to be the messenger for that and to share those stories. I mean, Doug Meyer of our Meyer family shared his story with I Understand. And so we have to share that platform. And again, hopefully someone is listening.
Don't you feel like too, people have stepped into their vulnerability more this year than ever before in public roles? And isn't that beautiful? I think that when people understand that all of us are hurting. All of us are having feelings that we haven't felt in a long time, that maybe things from the past that we never even dealt with, that when we saw that triggered things. And just like grace, right? Like walking and living in grace, like not getting upset at the person who cut you off because you have no idea what kind of day that they're having, you know? And at the end of the day, now that you witness this, is that such a big deal, right? Is that really such a big deal?
Okay, Shelley, so now that we're in, we've been kind of virtual, and a lot of the, I guess, other successful people out there are kind of at home. They're not touring. They're not doing a book tour, whatever. Have you thought about, to me, I'm thinking this is the best opportunity to get in with these people and do a virtual interview. Have you tapped in on that? Like I heard you say that you did you say Cheney? Who did you do interview?
Lynn Cheney, Rick Steves. That was a tough interview because he's a PBS travel guru.
Right.
The book For the Love of Europe. And so I just talked to him a couple of weeks ago talking about, he's not traveling. I get a lot of like former chief medical journalist. He's former, probably the last 10 years he's been gone. Bob Arnott talked about wearing the best way to wear your mask.
Okay.
This would now be the time to talk to the stars.
I think so.
That was
I've been reaching out to people on LinkedIn, but even following whichever is going to be, and some of the people that are been so busy they wouldn't even think about coming. They're out there touring, but now they're home, and could be the opportunity, like Tony Robbins and stuff. Hey, you want to come on my show? And they may say yes. Some of them may have I'll give you 10 minutes. But are you looking at it as an opportunity to tap into some of these people that maybe were too busy traveling to take
yes,
on?
As long as their message, yes. Because we would ask about their personal side. How are you doing with not being on Broadway? I'd love to get a hold of the Hamilton, Lynn Maxwell.
Okay.
On his, that's on a bucket list. The gal from the Today Show, Kathy Lee Gifford, just wrote a book. I'm in touch with.
Oh, I love her. I love Kathy Lee Gifford. Oh my
God. Wrote a book, You're Never Too Late. So we're in talks with Kathy Lee. So it's interesting because I say I have 6 to 8 interviews in an hour. So it's at this point, so much has been COVID, dealing with it from a local angle. I just booked a guest from Mary Freebed, as we move in. So it's not like I'm sitting around saying, who am I going to get on the show? So this makes you've given me a challenge to reach out to, to this angle.
I'd be curious to see who would say yes. You're like, oh my God, guess who's going to be on my show, right? Be kind of exciting. Yes. But we were talking about authors and stuff like that. I'm just going to ask you, did you ever written a book? Have you ever written a book?
No, it's on the list. It's in my list book, but I need.
I love that, Golda.
Well, my dear, we need some people locally that can dedicate some book into the Grand Castle Library. So I've been doing that. I'm on my 4th one, so a 4th or 5th, no 5th one already. So reach out to them and say, hey, you would want to dedicate a book. Pamela would love to do a little bit of that's a plug for the Grand Castle Library because we're doing dedications there. I think it's a great opportunity.
I get about 5 books. I get about 5 books a week.
I know you do. I know.
So Shelley, who has been your favorite guest of all time and why?
Wow. Well,
Pam raises her hand. For those that can't see her on the podcast, she's raising her hand like it was me.
I can give you a couple answers on a couple different angles, and I'll start with the personal angle. Because I was so into my Brady Bunches and my Partridge Families and the Waltons, I actually had Peter Brady, Christopher Knight in studio about 5 years ago. And I had Richard Thomas, who played John Boy, in studio.
Oh my goodness.
How about William Shatner?
Let's not go there. You know about my William Shatner story?
Oh yeah.
That was
What happened with William? I didn't hear the story.
Yeah, Shelley, how'd that go?
That was, well, let's just say, Mr. Shatner has a unique personality. Number one, I would never say no to an opportunity, but I was not a big Trek fan. So, or Trek, I mean, I
Star Trek. Yeah.
was not as big as Partridge Family was in my life. But I had the opportunity to serve as his host when he came to DeVos Performance Hall a couple years ago. So it's me and Mr. Shatner on the stage in front of, I don't know, 1,000. I mean, it was full. So what an opportunity.
Uh-huh.
But he basically had a unique way of dealing with me. So
Oh, no.
he kind of called me out that don't you ever watch Star Trek? And of course I did my homework, but I learned how to do this or whatever. It was just an interesting experience, but I'll leave it at that. He was very lovely.
You could tell people for years. Well, our generation would understand it. I don't know if Steph would, but her husband Ed would understand it. But when you told me that story, I'm like, oh, I wish I would have been there. I wish I would have been there. You know.
Yeah.
But anyways, what was the question?
So I had Peter and Peter Brady and John Boy Walton, and the only reason I go there is because they were such an influence in my younger life of wanting to be on TV, and that I said to them, do you realize how much yes, I was a fan. And I did have to obviously not let them know that I was picker pated. On the professional side, obviously, if you're an NPR listener, you most likely had listened to Diane Rehm, who followed, her show was on after mine. And she was in Grand Rapids. Actually, WGVU did a fundraiser with her, so I was able to be involved with that. But she was on my show, and for me to interview Diane Rehm live, because A, you want to do a good job knowing that she's there, but B, this is a lady that succumbed to millions with her soul. So, and obviously she's.
What would be your dream? Who would you love to interview?
Wow. Besides Pamela and Stephanie.
Of course.
I've been thinking about that because I have so many interests. Do I want an athlete? Do I want, a former Olympian? But I've had a couple of former gal Olympians, mostly by phone. And a lot of times the stars are there is a product involved, and I have to be careful with that. Mostly it's their book.
Okay.
But if they're selling something, I have to stay back.
Ask the last question. That we're wrapping this up. So.
All right. So Shelley, looking ahead. Yeah. So understanding that we don't know what's going to happen or not happen, what is one thing that you're very excited about with WGVU for next year? Nice.
I'm going to use that word of persevere as my 2021 word. I want to maintain the success that we have and build on that, I guess is safe to say. How do we perhaps build a platform, as we've been mentioning, for our future? Maybe there is a whole segment that's I bring safely in a couple of kids to do a show for 10 minutes, for 15 minutes. Wouldn't that be kind of cool?
That would be amazing. I think that would be wonderful.
Wouldn't that be amazing? Wouldn't that be a challenge? So reach out and provide a different of a platform. Maybe bring the Facebook, bring a couple more opportunities to use our platforms together and join another board of directors.
Yeah. All right. We want to wrap this up. We want to thank you so much for being with us today. For all our viewers out there or podcast people, you will see Shelley once everything opens up. You're going to see her on the podium at your next event, or she may be running next to you at your next 5K, or she might be with her dog in the park. But whatever it's going to be, or you're going to hear her on the radio. We want to wish her all the success in 2021. And Stephanie, do you have anything to say to her before we say goodbye? Because I know she's going to.
You're a blessing. You are amazing. You're a legacy. And how can people tap into Shelley Irwin who want to get in contact with you?
You bet. Let's go right to irwinsh@gvsu.edu.
Okay.
or WGVU.org. Just the general website. Lots more than that, but I always, one or two, that's it, maybe.
You'll find her on
Well,
Facebook.
thank you so
just
much,
have to
Shelley,
open her
for all
up,
you do.
right? You need a
Yeah,
board of
Facebook.
directors. She's fabulous. She's going to be, or the next MC when we open up, would be a
Yes.
fabulous MC for your event. Right, Shelley?
It would be perfect, but I'm going to get you on the airwaves beginning January, so get ready, practice ups.
I'll practice my ums and so's. You know I'm a Toastmaster girl. All right, we want to wish everybody a fabulous success in 2021. We will see you in January. This is Pamela Keim for Grand Tap Media. Say goodbye, Steph.
Bye, Stephanie Kolakowski from Grow Business Today and Shelley Irwin.
All right, have a fabulous New Year's. Take care, everyone.